I'd like to call to order this February 13, 2018 meeting of the Bernalillo County Commissioners to order. We will now have a silent invocation and pledge of allegiance said by Commissioner O'Malley.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll go to item number 3, announcements or additions or changes to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, at this time we do not have any changes or additions to the agenda, unless the board does.
Okay, so move on to item 4. We don't have any proclamations or certificates and awards this meeting? Okay, thank you so much. Then we will move on, or no board or committee appointments?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 7, which is public comment.
And we have one sign, I'm sorry, we have 2 signed up this evening.
Public comment, okay. So as we move on to public comment, we'll now proceed to it. You will have 2 minutes to speak. You will be given a 30-second notice to wrap up your comments and a final notice when your time is up. When your name is called, please make your way down to the podium and state your name for the record before you begin your comments.
Don Schrader and Sarisha Mann.
Don Schrader. A man beaten horribly as a kid by his alcoholic father learned to endure the beatings with not even a whimper, to not give his father the satisfaction of seeing his pain. As a grown man, he is not able to show any sign of pain or sorrow. Many people think he is cold, but he says they have no idea what goes on inside him. Adults cannot beat kids into being good. Hitting kids beats evil deeper into them. Spanking teaches kids, make people obey you out of fear and pain. Spanking teaches kids, hit those you love when you're angry. Hitting kids teaches them not to respect their own bodies and other people's bodies. Many kids beaten later abuse their bodies with booze, cigarettes, other drugs, junk food. Many kids beaten grow up to abuse others, family violence, street gangs, and in the worst gang of all, as soldiers waging war. If someone had known Griego was severely abusing his son Nehemiah and had called the authorities, resulting in strong intervention with deep family counseling, Nehemiah's murder of his parents, 2 sisters, and a brother could probably have been prevented. None of us can say for sure that if we had suffered as Nehemiah did, we would not have committed his atrocity. We all are more than the worst thing we ever did or almost did. With much help, we can wake up. We can change.
Thank you.
Sarisha Mann. Sarisha Mann.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Sarisha Mann, and I'm an attorney with the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. I just came to say a few words about the UNM hospital agreement that will be up for discussion later today. While I can't speak on behalf of the other community groups that have been working on this effort, as we haven't had a chance to review the MOU together yet, I can share my perspective, and I just want to say that it's been a long journey and, to get from where we started to now, and I really want to applaud the Commission's efforts on this, and for sticking with it, and for taking the time with community members and with UNM Hospital to really craft this agreement. Thank you especially to Commissioner O'Malley, to Commissioner Hart-Stebbins for leading the charge, to the County Manager's Office, to the County Attorney's Office, Maureen Sanders. I'll remind that this all started with community members coming to the Commission looking for more accountability over that $90 million of mill levy funding that's given to the hospital every year. And there were strong concerns about whether the hospital was meeting its obligations as a safety net hospital for low-income communities. With the county's oversight and with the county's role, we've already seen a lot of great improvements of the hospital, including the hospital stopping collections against low-income patients, fixing an egregious policy of charging 50% down payment policy payments to low-income patients. UNM is now working with tribes to ensure compliance with its contractual obligations. UNM is expanding primary care and behavioral health to be able to support people, including people leaving detention facilities. So there is a lot in that agreement, and I just want to come and say that your efforts are appreciated and recognized, and I really want to thank you for that on behalf of my organization and others. I do have one amendment. I'm recognizing this is a carefully negotiated agreement. I know I don't have time in this 2 minutes to talk about it, but I would like to just offer it to you to take a look at it. It's around that 50% down payment policy, which I don't believe this agreement fixes necessarily, but if there's an opportunity to talk about it, I'm here and would like to discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll move into commission meeting minutes for January 23rd, 2018 administrative meeting. So I have a motion for approval of the minutes. I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion passes. Approval of the consent agenda. I have a motion for a consent agenda. For Madam Clerk, can I please have the numbers for 9A, 9B, and ordinance number for 9D?
Mr. Chair, 9A would be 2018-12, 9B would be 2018-13, and the ordinance is 2018-6.
Thank you. So I have a motion from Commissioner Talbert, and I have a second from Commissioner Johnson. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Approval of the consent agenda. We'll go to item 10, adoption of ordinance and amendment of the county code, economic development.
For the record, we do not have anybody signed up for public hearing for this item.
Okay, so no public hearing. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the Economic Development staff recommends the approval of the ordinance authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approve a multifamily housing revenue bond application on behalf of DBG Properties, LLC in the amount of up to $23 million. The DBG Properties, LLC ordinance approves the issuance of bonds as well as the bond documents, indentures, financial agreement, lease agreement, preliminary official statement, and bond purchase agreement. I'll stand for any questions.
We have a motion and a second. Could I have an ordinance number, please?
10A is 2018-7, 10B is 2018-8.
Okay, well, we'll do A first. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We will now go to item B from Economic Development, IRB for Vitality Works. So we already have a ordinance number for that. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The Economic Development staff recommends the approval of the ordinance authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approve an industrial revenue bond, an IRB application, on behalf of Vitality Works, Inc. in the amount of $7 million. The Vitality Works, Inc. ordinance approves the issuance of bonds as well as the bond documents, indentured lease agreements, and bond purchase agreements. I stand for any questions.
Commissioner,
So yes.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted confused. I wanted to thank our folks at the Economic Development Department for working on this, and in particular our director, Ms. Archuleta, and I think this is really good for the county, and I move approval.
All right, so I have a motion for approval.
Second.
And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we will move on to item 10C, purchasing, adoption of the Home Rule Procurement Ordinance.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Lisa Cedillo-White. Tonight I have the motion to introduce and approve for publication a new procurement ordinance establishing policy for procurement of tangible personal property, services, and construction for Bernalillo County, also replacing Article 5, Divisions 1, 2, and 3. The Bernalillo County Home Rule Urban Charter, which was passed by voters in November of 2016 general election, it took effect January 1, 2017, which allowed the county the ability to adopt its own procurement ordinance that applies to all expenditures by the county for procurement of tangible personal property, which are goods, services, and construction. So for tonight we have the motion to introduce and approve the publication.
So moved.
So we had a motion and I guess a second. Which one? We'll go motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, so the motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 11, adoption of resolution.
Where are we? Shoot, I'm all turned around.
Here we go.
So we don't have anything there.
We're moving on to item 12A under approvals.
Okay.
What's that? I'm sorry.
12A.
Item 12A under approvals.
Okay, so we're going to 12A for behavioral health. So we'll move on to item 12A, behavioral health, new deputy first class position for the mobile crisis team.
Chairman Casada, Commissioners, it's with great pleasure that I stand before you tonight to announce the first MCT, Mobile Crisis Team, in Bernalillo County. And what your actions tonight will do is provide 2 new deputy positions that will head up that mobile crisis team. Our goal is to have this rolling out by next week, so we're moving extremely quick on it with your approval.
Great.
And behind me we have members from the Sheriff's Department that I'd like to have the opportunity to speak to you about their role in the mobile crisis teams. Again, a big win for us tonight for behavioral health.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. I just want to thank you guys. This is something that the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office has done for years. This actually gives us the opportunity to be specialized and have 2 dedicated folks. That's all they do. The Sheriff's Office has been the king of multiple hats and collateral duties for years, so this gives us the opportunity to specialize and help those folks in crisis. Thank you.
Thank you.
We stand for any questions at this point.
We have any questions? We have a motion for approval. We have a second. We have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And real
Congratulations.
quick, I'd also like to thank Shirley Reagan for all of her help with making sure that this was possible. She did a lot of work behind the scenes to secure vehicles and extra equipment that we weren't able to put in the initial program for behavioral health dollars. So thank you, Shirley, for making that possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Commissioner Talbot.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing to Deputy County Manager Perez. You sent me the note on the heart monitors. I know that has nothing to do with this today, but it does have something to do with the fact that Commissioner O'Malley researched this and asked for a while ago for this to happen, so she started the ball rolling. I then went to the push-in ceremony, which was amazing, such a ceremonial kind of thing. Got to you and Julie, and you guys made it happen and got them out there. And so, again, the importance of having these kind of tools out in the community, much like these mobile crisis teams, just puts our citizens at a much more comfortable level knowing that we have the things we need in order to support them. So great job all the way around. Thank you, Sheriffs. Appreciate that as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. And I'm not going to talk about the heart monitors, but that's a great deal. I've been waiting for these mobile crisis teams for some time, and I'm excited that we can get them out and get them deployed. I think it was a critical link and a critical deficiency in our law enforcement response. Going forward, I know that this will reap benefits for the county and for the public at large. Thank you for your work on this, and thanks for being so diligent on it.
Okay. Moving on to item B.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So what you have before you tonight is your approval for the mill levy agreement for the University of New Mexico, with the University of New Mexico Hospital and the Bernalillo County UNMH, and with also the Indian Health Services giving its consent. The All Pueblo Council of Governors was also at the negotiating table. Very important for you all to know, Governor Riley was involved, Dr. Thomas from the Indian Health Services as well. The mill levy agreement was last approved by the Commission and the UNM Board of Regents in June 2008. So I know that the public comment given on our webpage in the fall of 2017, it also went to the Commission in the fall of 2017 for public hearings and requested that the programmatic sub-agreements for the navigational services also be included for your approval. So I wanted to bring that up because they're not going to be coming before you tonight. So the subsequent approvals for the programmatic agreements for the navigational services and the case management services, they're being prepared by UNMH and county staff and will be brought before you for commission approval, but not tonight. And Mike Ciccarelli is here that he can speak a little bit more about that when he comes up. But I just wanted to acknowledge that and let you know that we do realize that. So just a few important precursors to this 2018 mill levy agreement. So as you know, in 2014, the Commission appointed a healthcare task force to produce a report and recommendations for the health system planning and with the hospital lease. So we wanted to acknowledge that, and we wanted to let you know that most of the report's recommendations have been addressed in the document before you tonight. So those were taken into consideration, and many of the issues highlighted in this report as they relate to the behavioral health are being addressed by the county's behavioral health initiative. So just, please know that, and I'm sure that you all have asked a lot of questions, and so I just wanted to reiterate that. The county's behavioral health initiative is working closely with UNMH towards program and service implementation, such as the new Resource Reentry Center. As you know, we're going to be opening that up this summer. Hopefully in June, we'll be opening the doors to that, as well as other non-governmental partners. So just recall that the voters approved a 6.4 mil rate in November of 2016, so that equates to $95 million per year for the operation and the maintenance of the UNMH, and this amount is approximately 10% of of UNM's annual operating budget. So, and I think another thing to note is that with the congressional action amending the Affordable Care Act, that it has some repercussions on the individual health care mandate and Medicaid funding for hospitals. So the last several months of negotiations were affected by this federal action. And I know that you all are aware of that at all. So we've taken some we've made some challenging progress in late 2015. I know that since I became county manager, I think we started negotiations, so it's been over 2 years. We worked very, very hard as, and I appreciate Sarisha mentioning that, and thank you for acknowledging, because we heard from you commissioners, you heard from your constituents, and we relayed those concerns to our partners, UNMH, IHS, and of course the Pueblo Council of Governors. So wanted to let you know that Maureen is here. Our attorney, Maureen Sanders, is here to answer any questions, and she's been intimately involved in the negotiations, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Julie. Just a couple other things. I think Julie pretty much covered most of it. I think the important thing is to know that healthcare, as we all know, is in a state of flux. And so it has a lot of bearing on the universities, UNMH's operations, and their ability to commit to certain things at this point. What's important, I think, about this document and this agreement is that it contemplates the state, the county, and the university hospital working together as you go forward. It's intended to cover the period of time remaining on the mill levy, which was an 8-year term starting in, I think, January 1, 2017. I think the vote was in November of 2016. There is language in the agreement that contemplates the university and the commission to get together, or the county to get together and do annual goals and not just have it a static product over a 6 to 8 year period. And so in contemplating that, there's two parts to the Memorandum of Understanding before you. There is the actual Memorandum of Understanding, which is a pretty simple document, only 4 pages. The important parts of that document, in addition to what the county manager just mentioned, is that at least 15% of the proceeds of the mill levy have to transfer to the county, will be used for mental health center and associated behavioral health and substance abuse treatment services. Additionally, there's a 2.060000 amount for navigational services and case management services, and that's going to be split up, and according to the agreements that the county manager mentioned, related to the navigational services for those already in the community, as well as case management services for those coming out of MDC. The MOU also contemplates that there will be an Exhibit B attached, which is a very long list of reporting requirements that UNMH has to do on a recurring basis to the county on its various operations and its their employee statuses and their deficiencies and those kinds of things. The Exhibit A is the meat of the document, and I say that because that's where what is happening with respect to reporting and interaction, accountability and transparency, primary care and low-income care, financial assistance, and Native American care, and behavioral mental health and substance abuse care are all set out. Some of these things are listed in terms of they're going to study the availability, for example, of telehealth for some services that need to be done. And so it can move forward and be a flexible document that can be addressed, and Exhibit A can be changed by agreement of the parties. And there was also mentioned an Exhibit C that will be adopted that are supposed to set out the annual goals on a rotating basis, so that there is an annual look at what's going to happen in the next year. That's all I have to say, and I'll stand for questions.
Do you have any questions? Commissioner Hart-Stebbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Maureen, this may be a question for both you and Mr. Ciccarelli, but, you know, those additional MOUs concerning navigation services, I think, are very important to all of us. What's the status of those at this point in time?
I think Mr. Ciccarelli will have to answer that, since I've not been involved in those MOUs.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, excuse me. Those agreements are currently being reviewed by the Office of University Counsel, and so we do have them under review, and I suspect that they should be tied up fairly soon.
So by our next commission meeting at the end of February, perhaps?
You know, I didn't have an opportunity to talk to our counsel about that prior, so I don't want to put a date on it, but I know that we're interested in the vote tonight, also the vote with the regions, and I know that they have been looking at them for the last at least month or so, and so I would hope that we could bring it back to the next committee meeting.
Okay, thank you, because I think you know there had been some pressure on us to do both at the same time, and at University
Yes.
Hospital's request, we did not do that.
That's
but
correct.
I don't want it to, slip. So
Understood.
some indication of when that might be done would be really helpful.
Okay.
I guess, and this is another question I think that both of you might be able to answer. So, you know, one thing that I think was important to all 5 commissioners was how the mill levy proceeds would be reported, would be in order to be accountable to the taxpayers who pay them. And I noticed that, so Exhibit A, B5 really gets at that. But there's some language in here that I'm not sure I quite understand. It says that University Hospital will provide additional financial information, you know, including but not limited to annual expenditures of the proceeds of the mill levy, and then in parentheses, presented and calculated based on the percentage of the total annual amount of net revenue of University Hospital. What does that mean?
Go for it.
Okay, thanks. So
I think it's your language.
Yeah, well, it's not my language personally. We negotiated this as a group, right? Okay, so I think what that's saying is that so the mill levy doesn't go to a particular cost center, for example, right? And so the mill levy is used for the general operations of the hospital. And what I think we've demonstrated in years past, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is we sort of show the general areas that the mill levy could go to. So I'll give you behavioral health for a good example. So, you know, last year our behavioral health, as an example, would have been just under $1 million a loss, and we would say that that would be covered by the mill levy. And I'm making up numbers here. I don't have those in front of me as an example. So I think that's the way I read that language, that we would continue that practice.
Okay, because I think, you know, putting it in just saying that it goes into the general fund, I think lacks the specificity that we are wanting. And if it's just done as a, I mean, I understand this is, well, I guess my question is this the only way that you're going to report the use of the mill levy? By attributing, you know, a certain percentage to each service area?
So I think that when we looked at this in the past, it would be incredibly burdensome to break it out any further than that. We can go back and look at that if it's requested. I know that we've looked at it in the past, at least from what I understand, when Mr. McKernan was here. And what I'm told is that it would be really difficult to do that down to the penny.
I just want to make sure that this language doesn't tie us in that that's the only way that it will be reported as a percentage of overall UNM income.
Chairman Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, on that one, there is an out, if you will. At the end of B5, it says, or is otherwise agreed by both parties. Right. And I think the contemplation is, as there is more interaction, continuing interaction between the county and UNMH, that it may be that there are other ways that get at exactly what the commissioner wants. I agree that this is not my desire in terms of how this is, because I think it is important for the county to know exactly how the mill levy is being spent. But I think it's a first step to take a look at it by department so that the commission knows what each of the departments are and can identify by the department whether or not that is a department that is likely serving either low-income or financially needy patients. And from there, I think additional information can be accessed and be more refined through the various committees that the county would have input on, as well as to their 2 trustees on the board of the UNMH.
Great, thank you. And then one final question. So section D3 talks about University Hospital's financial assistance program. And I think this is language that came into the MOU fairly late, but it talks about University Hospital will encourage and assist applicants for financial assistance to apply for other health insurance if it is considered to be affordable for the patient. What will that standard be? How will you determine what is affordable?
I think Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, I think you're right that this was late language to the Exhibit A. I think the intent is to make it clear that an individual applying for financial assistance at UNMH will not be denied financial assistance merely because they happen to be eligible for some of these other things. The only precondition, or the only exception to that, is Medicaid, and UNMH can say to folks, yes, you have to apply to Medicaid before you can get financial assistance for us if they are eligible. The problem has been that people were told, say, to go apply for an exchange policy, and it was unaffordable by that person. And so I don't think, even though it says, or any other coverage source, if it is considered to be affordable for the patient, that only goes to what the individual will be encouraged to look at, but nothing will be required, because UNMH might know of a particular program that an individual is eligible for and might be able to afford, so they can encourage them to go to it, but they cannot force them to do it as a condition of receiving financial assistance from UNMH.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you. I also just want to reiterate the statement regarding that Commissioner Stevens made regarding the contracts with the navigational services. I think that's important that we get those things going. We've, I think, extended a contract before, but I think there needs to be some assurance from those who are providing the services that, you know, there's going to be a commitment coming down from from BC, and also from, well, that was the throwback, 1980s.
If I were older, I would know what that meant.
Nobody knows what BCMC means. No, I'm just kidding. Of course they do. So that we get that going, and as I said, you know, for assurance purposes, and so I appreciate that would happen. And as I think was mentioned, because I think in some ways I sort of feel like we've gone a little bit in a circle here, because in a lot of ways, I think we really wanted to see a little more aggressive sort of changes in language, but given, as you mentioned, just the instability of healthcare in this country, and just in terms of, you know, the financial and the capital markets and everything else that's occurred, that it's very difficult to, I think, really hold to, especially our, you know, our partner in terms of, you know, any kind of real financial commitment. But getting back to also the accountability in terms of financial accountability, I hope that we can work something out. I think that one of the problems we had was the way things were being accounted for from the hospital. It didn't give us enough information, so I think we need to work on that. That's something we need to work on. That said, I do want to thank, because this was a couple of years ago that some community folks came and asked, you know, me to carry the whole thing for the lease agreement, and I was happy to do it. It was a long process, and quite frankly, I think frustrating many times, but I appreciate your perseverance and also coming together and finally negotiating something. And so I appreciate all the work that was done by the committee. I appreciate the University of New Mexico and all the folks who worked in negotiating. In particular, also Ken Martinez came into this, our attorney, and I appreciate the work that you've done as well, and all the partners. So that said, I would like to move approval.
So I got a motion. Any more discussion? Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would just like to thank our county staff again, our county attorney, our county manager, Julie Morgesbach. Can you estimate how many hours you have put into this, resolving this issue?
Well, I became county manager in, October 2nd of 2015, and I think we started this probably, I don't know, hours, I can't imagine, but since October of 2015. I mean, and we met, you know, at least twice, maybe once or twice a month for hours. So
I just want to say thank you. I know it's been incredibly complex and time-consuming, but we're really grateful for all the work you put into it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now let's go on to item C. County Manager.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, what you have before you is a motion to approve the travel requested by District 3 Commissioner Maggie Hart-Stebbins. And I just wanted to, this is to Singapore, and I just kind of wanted to step back and let you know that this has been done in the past. In fiscal year 14, Commissioner Stebbins went to Taiwan in, let's see, I believe fiscal year or let me see, March of 2014. Commissioner Talbert traveled to Brazil. In 2016, Commissioner De La Cruz traveled to France. And then Commissioner Johnson traveled to Israel in 2015. So this has been done before. I just wanted to reiterate that. And I just wanted to say that the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Trade Alliance has requested that Commissioner Stebbins make this trip to lead the trade mission to Southeast Asia. So she was asked, and Southeast Asia, as you know, is the world's fastest growing market right now. And the trade mission will give participating Bernalillo County small businesses the opportunity to promote their products. And Commissioner Hart-Stebbins will be our elected official who will be representing Bernalillo County, who will be representing New Mexico. She'll be the lead, where she can not only assist the trade mission, but more importantly, leverage her relationships that she's already established there. So I think it's just very valuable to have her attend and go on this trip. We've done a lot of research, and so the travel dates are April 20th through the 28th, and we're just asking for your approval of this travel, and the money has been budgeted.
Mr. Chairman.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Julie, I know Randy Trask is here. I'd invited him to come and talk about, just say a few words about the Trade Alliance and what he does and what the intent is.
Thank you. I think the county manager should run the Trade Alliance, because she basically just summed everything up perfectly. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you so much for the opportunity to address you today. Since the city and the county came together in 2013 to form the Trade Alliance, the program has been growing leaps and bounds. It's extremely successful. We are now supporting, on average, more than 34 local companies a year. And the last 2 years, we have reported more than $14 million in new exports coming from local companies as a direct result of the assistance that we're providing them and helping them find customers and partners in foreign markets. That, of course, is thanks not only to our partnership with the county, the amazing staff you guys have at the Economic Development Department, but also the personal involvement that each of you have played in the program. So from leading trade missions, which several of you have at this point, but also the Global Ties State Department delegations that come in that you all take time to meet with, the sister cities delegations. All of that makes a big difference in promoting Bernalillo County internationally, and also I think you all have found it valuable in some of the discussions that you've had with some of those delegations that come in. So thanks again for your support for the program. This particular trade mission is probably one of the largest partnerships that we've done so far. This will be in partnership with the State of New Mexico's Office of International Trade, the State of New Mexico's Agricultural Trade Office, the U.S. Department of Commerce, the U.S. Small Business Association, and the Western United States Agricultural Trade Association. And we've pulled together both local funding through our support on the ground, as well as some federal grant money, and we'll have a New Mexico pavilion at Food and Hotel Asia in Singapore. We're taking 4 local companies with us: Varo Wines, Via Miriam Coffee and Tea Products, Cervantes Food Products, and Chef Eddie's Cajun Flavors as another local company. It's not New Mexican flavors, but it's a local company here. And we look forward to having the commissioner, as some of you have in the past, lead this trade mission. Not only will she be supporting the companies by working with them in the booth, but we also set up separate meetings, including some meetings with some local incubators in Singapore, because that's a market where their next step is to look at larger markets like the United States. So we'll be able to meet with those companies and talk about Bernalillo County as a potential location for them to consider. So lots of work to be done. Again, thank you so much both to the department and to the commission for all your support in this program, and we hope to see it continue to grow and thrive into the future. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Randy, thank you for the work you do for the county and for our local economy. I'm absolutely going to support this, and I think one of the things that's oftentimes lost is we sit here in New Mexico or in Bernalillo County and we say we want to be known internationally, and we want businesses to come from around the world and do business here in Bernalillo County and state of New Mexico. We just have been sitting around and waiting for them to come. Mm-hmm. And that's an approach that doesn't work. And so the Trade Alliance plays an important factor in getting us in front of potential business partners. And you get a lot of credit for showing up. And that's the only way that you can actually create a relationship. And trade is built on relationships. Mm-hmm. And if they don't know you, they won't trade with you. And getting out there and going to Singapore, going to Israel, as I have done a couple of times, it's important to actually forging those relationships and creating potential opportunities for businesses here in New Mexico. So thank you for the work you do.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think you also can now officially run the Trade Alliance. So,
thank you. For me, you know, historically, that anybody who has traveled from my district, District 2, seems to be criticized and kind of crucified through the media. So for me, I am not going to support this because it's just showing that because of my district, if we travel or if I travel or my predecessor travel, it just becomes a way of making anybody that comes from my district looking as if we're corrupt or we're misspending taxpayers' money. And so I am going to stand against this because of what I think the media would do if I went and traveled. If I decided I wanted to go to Singapore and learn tomorrow in the media, I would be corrupt and I would be misuse of funds. And so for me to stand firmly with my predecessor saying that if we can't do it, then nobody should be able to do it. And I think they all should be criticized if they're doing that. And so I'm going to vote against it.
Mr. Chair, if I could make one clarification, I completely respect your opinion. It should be clarified that the trip that you're referring to was not part of the Trade Alliance. It was a separate trip.
Any travel that we do, though, is what I'm saying. I know it's not protected, and I know how important this is, and I believe in what the commissioner is going to be able to go out and do. But what I'm saying is that if I do it, I'm a criminal and I'm misusing taxpayers' money, and that's what this media will put out. And so instead of them doing that to me tomorrow because I voted yes for it, they can't say that about me and my district.
Understood. I welcome the opportunity to chat with you on another occasion about it as
Sure.
well.
Yeah, Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you. There were some concerns, of course, about the travel and travel policies and the cost of travel, and rightly so. I mean, we are public officials, and we're going to be scrutinized in terms of things like this. Now we have policies in place that, you know, where things have to go before the commission if there are a certain amount. This is not. This amount, I think, is one of the smallest amounts for anyone that's gone on a trade mission. I think we're really looking at more than $5,000 to $6,000 or actually higher. I haven't been on a trade mission, but it's not something that's high on my list either. But I think what's important is that we justify what we're doing, we be able to justify it, and then when something like this comes before the commission, it's very transparent. And so I think that's actually a good thing that's happened. It's a good change. And so I just wanted to just say that I think that's the first time that something's come before the commission, and I think that's a good thing, and that's why, because we really do need to make sure that we are clear and that it's very clear to the community what it is we're doing in terms of travel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hurstead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just like to add, I don't know, I think many of you know that I lived in Southeast Asia for a number of years, and since I've been back, I've been able to since we're back in the United States, actually been able to return to Southeast Asia about once a year to keep my ties with the business community there. So I think this is not just an issue of a commissioner going on this trip, but I think a situation where I really can add value and introduce our business owners to people who can really help them, not just in Singapore, but throughout Asia. So I think that's important to point out. And secondly, I think as Commissioner O'Malley pointed out, $3,500 is a lot. And I'm not quite sure how staff arrived at that figure, because I am fairly certain it's going to be a lot less than that. I'm guessing it'll probably be more like around $2,000. So does that make a difference? I think so. But we'll certainly do everything we can to keep those costs down. So thank you. I appreciate the support of the commission. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. Going to item D, Human Resources, Collective Bargaining Agreement between the County and ASME 18, Local 2260, White Collar. Madam
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, what you have before you is what you just said is the collective bargaining between the county and ASME. At this time, if you all want to, you can kind of make your way up. We just wanted to kind of give you I think the financial highlight of the contract, of what the negotiation was. So they will be receiving a 4% increase and a $2,000 one-time pay initiative, just one time, and that doesn't, I want to make sure that you all understand, that doesn't obligate the county to do anything in the future, or there's nothing that compounds our financial situation, so that, the costs keep increasing. So it's that one-time increase. And I wanted to also remind you that these individuals and the individuals in this in white collar, they haven't received a raise in 5 years. So I wanted to remind you of that. And I also wanted to let you know that some of the jobs in white collar are public safety, are MDC, are BCSO, are emergency communications. They serve the community 24/7, 365 days a year. They make the sacrifices that a lot of the folks in the uniformed officers make as well. And I just think, the other reason is we realize they're actually, they have some of the lowest paid county, they are the lowest paid county employees, and they come from white collar. So, we looked at the exit interviews, and we were looking to see why people were leaving, and most of the time we're losing people is they're leaving because of pay, because of compensation, and we need to keep good people. And I know that you all have asked me to do what we can, and I want to let you know we are being fiscally responsible. And again, we're not obligating the county to any future, anything that's going to compound in the future. So it's the 4% and then the one-time pay. And with that, I wanted to introduce the team, our administrative team, Megan Ellsworth, Lisa Cedillo-White, Pam Moon, and Lee Thompson. I wanted to thank them for all their work. Also Terry Hopp, I know she'll be saying a few words. She's the president of the union, and Rocky Gutierrez is representing ASME. So Terry, would you like to say a few words?
Hello, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. This is my negotiating team and executive board. We'd like to thank you for everything, and like to thank the negotiating team for management, and we appreciate everything, and thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Malley, you want to speak something now?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, this is a good time to say how important it was, certainly to me, and I know to the other commissioners, that we show that we value the employees and work hard and make the sacrifices. And it's a lot of times I know that there's families that you're both working. If you have a spouse or a partner, that everybody's working in the household to make it work, because it's hard out there. So I just want to thank you for the work that you do, and I just wanted you to know that we value the work that you do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I failed to mention Virginia Chavez is on the team, and I just wanted to also mention that HR played a huge part in all this, and they have been working tirelessly to help us make these kinds of decisions. And I also wanted to thank our finance department. Shirley and your team, thank you very, very much. And mostly I wanted to thank you all for your support, because without your support, we couldn't do this. So thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. I move for approval. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? We're approving D. Yeah. Now we're moving on to item E. We'll go through one through all. No, we can now here when we go from 15. Yeah, we should do 1 through 8.
I'm good. There's a motion.
Please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Virginia, and I'm the Human Resources Director. I'm here to present the agenda item for the revisions for employees' rules and regs. The first motion is to approve the proposed amendments to Rules and Regulations, Section 402, probationary employees. And the change for this, and I'm going to go describe each one because there's a few. The change for this is to add the change that we did, we presented at a previous meeting for the bereavement leave, to add it to the probationary section. Second motion is to approve the proposed addition to Rules and Regs, Section 519, longevity pay. And that's the motion to codify the practice of longevity pay for Rules and Regs employees. It wasn't in the Rules and Regs, and we're just trying to codify that. The third motion is to approve the amendment to Section 1003, annual leave accrual. And this is in addition to the current language. It's to allow Rules and Regs employees to sell up to 40 hours of annual leave if they meet all the criteria as set forth in the section. Motion to approve Section 1020, sick leave conversion. And the change in this is to clarify the language. I think the language was a little bit confusing, and we're clarifying the language as far as the balances that are required for the sick leave conversion. Motion 5 is to approve the amendment to personal holidays, Section 1015, and that's to add a third or an additional personal holiday to increase it to 3 from 2. Motion number 6 is for the proposed amendment to 1302, the definitions of unclassified employees. And this is only to remove the courthouse security from the unclassified section. They have been unionized for quite a few years, but the rules and regs had not been updated. The seventh motion is to approve the proposed amendment to Section 1306, annual leave, and this is to mirror the amendment for unclassified employees regarding the ability to also sell 40 hours of, up to 40 hours of annual leave for unclassified employees. And then motion 8 is to approve the amendment for Section 1307, sick leave, and that is to clarify the language to show that the section does not apply to part-time employees, casual employees, emergency hires, temporary employees, and term employees. I move for any questions.
Have any questions? No? I have a motion?
Lonnie, I think, did the motion.
Okay, yeah. Commissioner Towers has a motion?
Second.
Motion to approve 1 through 8.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner O'Malley. All in favor signify by 1 through 8, right? Okay, so 1 through 8, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to go on to discussion. Do we have any discussion items this evening? No? Then we're going to be going on to our announcement of next commission meeting. It's Tuesday, February 27th of 2018, here at 5 p.m. in the Vincent E. Griego Chambers. This meeting is adjourned.